Good afternoon and welcome to BT Passive's second webinar of this series, which is building zero carbon passive house modular. Just before Ron starts, we're just going to cover a couple of housekeeping items. We will be having a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, so please do jot any questions that you have throughout in the Q&A box, which you can be found on your screen, and we'll try and get through as many questions as possible at the end. If there are any that we aren't able to cover, then we will contact you directly and make sure we do get those answers to you, but we'll try and get through as many as possible. Sorry, I'm having a slight technical issue with my video, so I'm just going to turn around now on Ron's, and Ron will commence. So thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for what I hope will be an informative webinar, and I hope I'll get lots of questions at the end. I really want to start with giving you a bit of an overview of what BT is about, where it started, and what we're trying to achieve in the industry. My background was a carpenter, and I then went on to learn every trade, and then a small development company. Very interested in energy performance and the way that buildings work, both from a structural design, but also from longevity and the way we live in buildings. And of course, we live in buildings, everyone lives differently at different temperatures, with different ideas of the amount of time we spend in the building. So when I started BT Passive, it was really due to an incident that happened to me when I was building one of the first code sustainable home level 6 developments, where I spent over 2.5 years in planning. It was really on the early days when Passivhaus wasn't really around, and the government had the code sustainable homes coming in. So I'd spent the best part of, as I say, 2 years in planning. I'd bought this development. This was going to be one of the greenest first code 6 developments in the UK. And we started off very well for the first sort of year, and we had a few properties sold. And then one day I walked around the scaffolding and I looked down the cavity, and there was no insulation at all in one of the flank walls. Of course, I moaned at the site agent, who moaned at the bricklayer, who moaned at the labourer, and said he never bought me any insulation. So it made me realise that it didn't matter what I did and how much planning and time I put into something, it was never going to work, because there's so many people in this from design to completion, and that is why our performance gap is just getting wider and wider. So the crash came in 2007. A lot of us developers, unfortunately, the banks pulled us in, and I was left with a clean sheet of paper, really. What do I do now? And so I thought I would rethink the way we build. Why do we build the way we do, with a floor built by somebody, a wall built by someone, and then a roof built by somebody else, or a ceiling? And well, they're all insulated differently, and no one really cares what happens in front of them or behind them. So what we needed to do, I believed, was to come up to a really simple system where one person can carry out the whole of that structural thermal envelope, including air tightness, including window installation if that's required, and then to test and guarantee that installation, so we know that it's built correctly. And that's really where BT Passive was born. And as you probably, if some of you was on last week, that has also gone forward to our retrofit system as well, our T-Cozy. So we started off some 11 years ago, and I'm pleased to say that BT Passive now have gone from stick built to panel built to now full modular. And I believe that as much as we need all types, modular building will be one that's going to grow for many reasons. One is productivity, 2, it's safety, 3, we have a lot of rainy, wet weather, as we've had today. And we need to find ways of building where we can build more buildings faster, and also get costs down, because costs are rising in the industry. Labour shortage is becoming a real issue. So we need to actually find ways of doing it. And I believe that offsite manufacture does give us that option. But also we've got to be flexible, because we all know how difficult it is to get a site up and running. So unlike a lot of our people that are also in the industry with us, our competitors, but also our friends, if you like, we've got to do it in a way that's going to allow us to set up factories across the UK to deliver local employment and to be able to diversify, I believe, from not just new build in modular, but also retrofit. And we've got to do it at a cost that's going to allow us to set these up and then put them in mothballs and then go forward again. So we're going to find that as land becomes more difficult to deliver, we're going to have to change and alter our build programs to suit that. And that's where the big organizations unfortunately can't do that, because they're set up to keep turning out properties. So BT Passive is different. BT Passive looks at a holistic way of building, and that's what I wanted to talk to you today. As you can see on that map there, we've spread quite a lot across the UK. We've got lots of partners doing stick built and panel built, but now we're starting to roll out our factory as well. And that's something I'll be talking later on, how you can join that, that new rollout of BT Passive factories. Passivhaus was always a driver for me. I heard about it probably 12 years ago, just before I started that development. And although it was very in its infancy, I knew then that it's something I needed to put into our build system. It's got 5 basic components, and they are the insulated envelope, which is continuous, good quality windows, air tightness below 0.6, and no thermal bridges anywhere. And of course, we use heat recovery ventilation as a way of ventilating that property correctly. Let's run through those now. Didn't know that happened. Well done. So if you look at this building here, you can see that the insulation, the green part, is continuous around the whole of the building. And in doing that, we're getting U values of 0.11 in the ceiling and roof, U values of 0.11 in the walls. And for the modular houses, we get 0.12, 0.15, and on site we get 0.9. So it does vary. It varies on how you deliver that building. But the good thing about BT Passive, you could deliver some of your modules in self-build, some in on-site manufacture, some on modular manufacture. So we've got a choice that will allow us to do all sites, whether we get cranes there or lorries there. There's a system in BT Passive that can deliver. Our air tightness is 0.6, our U values are 0.3, our Y values are 0.39, so we've got hardly any cold bridges whatsoever. Our sound between dwellings is up to 57 dB, so that's 4 times better than building regs. And our fire for one side of our wall is 2 hours, and then we have a gap in another wall 2 hours, so over 4 hours of fire protection in a BT Passive home. And the benefits, of course, Passivhaus is going to drastically reduce your energy requirements. And of course, building everything to Passivhaus standard now, and as Passivhaus, I believe, will grow throughout the UK as it's done across Europe, it's a wonderful way to see how we can fight climate change. So we're reducing the residents' heating cost, and at the moment, that's becoming a real issue. We've got fuel poverty and the rise in energy costs across the UK, and that's only going to continue. So the less we need to purchase, the better off our residents and ourselves will be. Every building is tested, and I think that's really important to whatever way you build. If we thermal imaged every single building that's built, if we air test and we have a structural survey on every single building that is built, we know that we're going to get what we design on paper. And BT Passive does it on every single build, whether it's built in a factory or it's built on site. There's independent tests that go on that make sure that building will deliver on what we design. The health benefits of Passivhaus are also coming through now. We're seeing a massive uplift in the way that the quality of air makes a big difference. So things like asthma, hay fever, and those sorts of things. If you live in a Passivhaus, there's no dust. It drastically reduces the dust in the air. So we are sort of finding that I believe the health benefits in Passivhaus will outweigh a lot of the built performance criteria, which is very exciting. And of course, a big one, we're building with all sustainable low carbon materials. And we're also looking at things like radon gas and flooding as well, without the sound and the fire. Radon is around us all in smaller parts in some areas. But as we build more airtight, we've got to make sure that we protect against radon poisoning, which is I think it is the second biggest killer on lung cancer across the world. So something we've got to be aware of as we build. Low running costs, no real requirement in gas. As we move away from gas and what's happening around the world at the moment is going to give us more issues on that. And then we're going to be able to get a faster return on our investments as well, because we're putting an infrastructure together that's going to last for longer. Building to passive house is something that we should do for the future of our building stock. So whatever new technology comes on, we can plug into that. But if we've got a fabric first approach, it's the best way forward. Building locally is the key. I think that we don't take an holistic approach when we look at building a home. Employment is so important. And if we put together a sort of graph of looking at what employment can do, and I'll talk to you in a few figures in a moment about that, and put that together with house building and young people, we've got to educate, we've got to train thousands of the new builders of the future. And unless we start now, our costs and the opportunity to build is just going to narrow. So using low carbon building processes, creating healthier homes, and also these homes have got to also be able to be relocatable. So a house isn't a house just to stay in its one location forever now. We should think about buildings in a new way. Think about buildings that are actually going to be able to be in a place for 100 years and then picked up and moved as things change. Every BT Passive home can be altered. There's a service for it around a continuous building that allows you to alter and change and put a doorway in or plat up a doorway around any of the BT Passive build systems, whatever way it's built. So what way are they built? We've got our stick built on site. We've got our large panel. We've got our small panel. We've got volumetric, which is, I would say, our thermal envelope, where we can just do the structural envelope and then you can finish it off on site. Or we've got a complete modular system where everything's finished, bathrooms, kitchens, everything's finished, and then it comes to site and then put together. That allows you to, I think, pre-plan. It brings down cost. We've got you're working in an environment where materials are pre-ordered, you know exactly what you're going to need, and it gives you a faster occupation. You can actually get that building to site a lot faster. And I think we ended up on our last development being able to from start to finish 13 weeks for a 3-bed apartment. From the moment it went into the factory line to it came out was 13 weeks. We could never do that on site. So that sort of performance, and that'll only get better as more and more buildings are built. Some of the houses that we've already built in modular started about 3-4 years ago at Graven Hill, where we had a selection of homes there that came in our structural thermal envelope scenario. We've now gone on to actually build houses where everything is finished, full modular delivery. And on the bottom of the side there, you'll see what we're building at the moment in Cardiff, which is 1, 2, 3-bed apartments that could be there for a day or 100 years. And when we look at what the government is doing at the moment, where we're spending £1.2 million a day for asylum seekers to go into hotels, where we could be investing £1.2 million a day in housing that we can reuse and redistribute across the UK, it's amazing how backward I think we are. We don't have to think now that we've got an asset we buy once and we can't reuse it. So we've got to think differently about housing. So we are trying to lobby government. We're trying to say to people, let's think again about this investment. If we go out and spend £1.2 million a day on properties, and next day we're going to have £2.4 million worth of properties. The third day we're going to have £3.6 million of properties. It's not rocket science. Instead of just people in hotels, things have got to change, and we've got to start looking things for more long term. We've had lots of different ideas around the face of temporary accommodation. Of course, we've done a lot with container homes, and that's now moved on to passive with our passive modular type house 4 range. And these are there for life. These are 60-year buildings. And we've got to find ways now to bring young people onto the property market. And it may be that we've got to have smaller units to start with. And there's nothing wrong with that if they are healthy, good buildings that we can then move on to and move up that property ladder. So I think there's a lot of work to be done around how we get young people onto the property ladder in the right sort of properties. Our house 4 range starts off, that I'm going to run through in a moment, but there's a house for 1, house for 2, house for 3, and then our apartment range. All of these are meant to move and change, so they don't have to be in one location. And where you have got issues with homeless, and we've got issues that we will come along again with migrant needing accommodation, you can put these up in a park. If we ever had another disaster, hopefully we don't, like Grenville, then a whole estate could have gone up next door to that in a park, and then that could have been serviced and people could live locally up to a very high standard for many years until we rebuilt the facility that we've done. And that's really how we're going to change the way that we build in the future. This is our house for 1, which is basically a single bedroom, a nice sized shower room, and then a living and kitchen area. As you can see by the photographs, it's very acceptable. This is here actually at our factory in Norwich. So if anyone wants to visit and have a look around here, please arrange to do so. But very simply, a lovely passive home in a very small environment for, I think, for 1 person. We then go up to our 2-person one, which is just a double bedroom really, and a bigger lounge. And then we can add these together. So you've got a large size bungalow there of 62 square meters, or an apartment. The structure's the same. Everything we build, whether it's a stick built, panel built, or modular, is exactly the same build process. The floor is different, of course, from modular because we've got to lift it. But apart from that, it's all built the same way. So you really can choose how you want your buildings delivered. These are our house for studios, and these were developed for real homeless, people that need off the street, people that need accommodation which is safe, which is warm, and again, these are 14 square meters or 15 square meters, and they're meanwhile housing before they get moved on. So you go and stay in here for a week, get assessed, and then move on. But I think people are very happy living in them. They're a very nice sort of a hotel type room. We also then got our hospital discharge units, and these things again for NHS, where we need to get people home. These can be dropped into people's houses. One of the biggest issues we have is around when people have got disabilities that come on them. They can only got upstairs bedrooms. We can drop one of these units into a garden, connect it up to existing services, and then they get the use of this really quickly. You know, you hear the stories where planning approvals are needed to change someone's home. By the time they get it, unfortunately, it's too late. So this sort of unit will allow people to come out of hospital and live with their families, and then that can be picked up and then used again for somebody else. So a very important part of I think the rehabilitation and care in the community that needs to be done. So these are our modular apartments, and as you can see, this can be there for a day or 100 years, and this is what buildings should be. Something you can change and alter if you need to. These probably never be moved. It's up in Cardiff, and originally it was there for 6 years, but we're thinking now it will go for full plan permission because there's such a need for homeless and these sites of large family accommodation. And unfortunately, with the way things are heading, I think that market's going to grow. So we need more of these accommodations. It can go on to meanwhile sites and then be moved on, but the asset is there. The asset for the council is there, and that can be reused and reused. And these are all zero carbon, Passivhaus plus buildings of the highest quality, and can be taken down and then moved, whether it's into groups of 5 or groups of 40. There's 50 in these blocks of flats that can be relocated. Price-wise for these units, house for 1 is, as you can see there, 71,000, house for 2, etc. And then the apartments start at 110,000. Now, when you're looking at price, building costs, people say to me, well, how much do you build for? I always say, well, how much do you build for? They never tell me. But in the end of it, building costs are rising. Building costs and quality are not aligned. People are paying a fortune of money for not something, which is the quality that they expect to get. So it's really important that when you're looking at building costs and you're looking at quality, you align them and you make sure that you're getting what you pay for. And at BT Passive, every unit is of the highest quality. We have currently got some housing stock. In fact, we've got some ones that we've built, and I believe we should be able to come along like a car showroom and say, "Oh, can I have an apartment, please?" Or "Can I have a house, please?" And wouldn't it be lovely that we haven't got this 2-year wait from conception of something to actually receiving it, because we've got a waiting list for houses now of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of homes, and we've got young people, we've got prisons full of people that need to start working and rehabilitating. So we've got to start building homes for the future, and don't wait until someone says, "Oh, I've got a bit of land." We need stocks of houses. We all build the same side of house. In the housing world, the housing association world, it's all 60 square meters, 72 square meters, 86 square meters. And that's a 1, 2 or 3 bed home. Why aren't we moving this forward? Why aren't we creating these homes where we can have them off the shelf? Why are we redesigning and redoing everything time and time and time again? And the costs just keep rising and rising and rising. So we need to change this. And I know it's a culture change. I know it goes against everything we've ever done, but we do need to change to have a stock of houses where we can just come along and buy. So these units are available. If you're interested in them, please speak to Ken or write into us. But within 6 weeks, you can have a home sitting on your land with someone in it. And that's the important thing. We should not have people that are all across the UK not in good accommodation. Some of our house types that we are now running out and will be running out in the future. And it's not just about what they look visually. It's about the box that we've got. All of these homes could look completely different. It's still an 86 square meter home. It's still a 60 square meter apartment. It's still a 100 square meter icebox house on the left-hand side. But they could all look different with windows in a different location, but the box and the size is exactly the same. And I think that's where we're going to head to be able to bring down costs and speed up production. It's going to be, yes, it's an 86 square meter box, but you want your window, you want one with brick, and you want your door there, and we're still building the box. It really is that simple. We've got flying factories, and they're really important to us. We've got flying factory partners that are actually building in stick and panel. And those flying factory partners in time will be have the opportunity to go to be our bigger modular flying factories as their pipeline improves, but also doing retrofit as well outside of that as well. So we've not only got stick built, panel built and modular, but also retrofit coming from those factories, which I think is going to be really important to bolster and help with the enormous problem we've got with the existing stock of our homes. Some of our partners here, Cutrefy Conway, Celtic Horizons, Yoka's just starting up in Scotland, a young team, Yoka Housing Association, young construction team that are going to be 20 odd flats they're building up in Yoka, and we're right down to Stonewater from Scotland down to Somerset. So a good range of our flying factory partners, which again is growing across the UK. And as well the world, we are now talking to Australia and America and New Zealand. They've all got the same problems. We've all got a terrible shortage of homes, of good quality homes, and we've got climate change. So they're coming together and realizing that passive house is something that is required across the world. Working with semi-skilled labor, to me, is the only answer to our housing problem. We can do it with we will be able to build homes with a robot. But what value is that to the community, and what value to that is it to the young people? So we need to train young people in building, and BT Passive is simple enough and easy enough to do that. We started this factory with 2 BT Passive operatives. We then went up to 80 odd, and 70% of those had never held a hammer before. They weren't tradespeople, but they are able to deliver over 150 units from this factory of the highest Passive House Plus quality. And the finishes are great. And everyone who visits that site down in Cardiff can see the quality that's come out of those buildings. And we need to do that in prisons. We need to give people a second chance. And you can't put someone in institution and then send them out with £37.50 and expect them not to reoffend. We spend £15 billion a year recycling people back into the system, where if we actually train them in building homes for the MOD, for our frontline workers, we'd not only have a whole trade workforce that could come out and start doing that again, but we'd have the homes at the end of it, and we will actually be stimulating that whole market. So there's a massive thing I think BT Passive can play in our prisons, in our colleges, and with young people that needs to happen. And people talk about it, you know, people talk about rehab, but it's not long enough. It's not long enough programs. There's never a full pipeline that needs to be established. And I think that's something that there's a great opportunity to do. So this is our little factory in Norwich. It's built all the houses down in Cardiff and another 100 odd in between. And it's about delivering stuff that is easily to build, that can be built under a controlled conditions, and really going to give you the option to really speed up your delivery. We only lightweight foundations. They're all 60-year plus life. They all come with 10-year warranty, BOPAS accredited. And it's about how do we roll this out across the country? How do we work in partnership? What we've done up to now is that majority of modular homes, you'll go and you'll buy one. You're not part of that. You're not part of the delivery process. You're not sharing in the good or bad of that. And what BT Passive aim to do is to change that. It's to change, it's work in partnership with BT Passive to deliver what you want with your community. From contractors that want to start up on their own and deliver their products, to housing associations and councils that really want modular building to be in their location, delivering the phenomenal trades and skills, but also keeping that pound local and putting that back into the local community. We've got, I think, the opportunity coming out of COVID, the opportunity with climate change. Everyone is now, I think, fixed on these two channels that we need to, prosperity needs to grow. We need to make sure that climate change is focused really at the heart of it. And I think BT Passive over its last 10 years has positioned itself where it can really help and can really bring these two things together. So, you know, zero carbon homes, employment and training, and the economic benefits that brings. When we look at this graph, we're looking at really a life cycle costing for the 50 apartments in Cardiff. And you can see that, you know, with bills have been reduced 500 or 600 pounds. And that was before the price rises, of course. So, you know, we've got 95% lower running costs, 85% less embodied carbon. You know, it's huge. And this is the savings we need. We recently done some surveys about A-rated properties, and you can get an A-rated property on your SAP and you can save 2% of carbon. BT Passive can get an A-rated SAP and save 87% carbon. And we relate an A property the same. It's just not the same. And I'm pleased to say that SAP is now going to change. It's looking at that and seeing how we can actually relate it to carbon savings. And we're going to get fined in the future in how much carbon we're putting, not only in the way we build it, but it's in life carbon as well. And I think BT Passive is at the forefront of looking at all our developments and seeing how much lifestyle carbon there is, but also it's built carbon. So what it's costing the carbon to build that property, which is really important. So if we can start local community factories up, employing 75 staff, giving all that training, every pound we spend, this is a national statistic, but it's £2.74 is put back into the local community. So if we give someone a job and a new start in a local factory, you know, over your 60 years, that's 9.2 million for those people. That's huge. It doesn't matter what we're building out of it, that goes out the window. When you're talking about the real holistic cost of building, we've got to look at it from employment right the way through testing, and at the end of it, what it's done for the climate. And I think we've lost that idea. We're just thinking about a building costing us X amount a meter. So I think we've got to make a different look and think, what's all the benefits going down the stages of if we build this locally, and if we put a factory that can employ these people that haven't worked in the industry before, what's that's doing for us? And if we haven't got to go to the NHS for asthma, and if we are all healthier, and we don't get radon gas, and we're not murdering our neighbours because they're so noisy, all these things really do add up. And if we can put together that in a business plan and to take it to build a house, I think the cost of the house would never exist. It really wouldn't. So I really think we've got to look at over a longer period of exactly what the well-being and that cost of a building is. So BT Passive is talking about partnerships. It's talking about how we work together. And what we've set up is our new joint venture partnerships. And we're working with 5-6 organisations across the UK at the moment to see how we can do this. So it's about both being 50% partners. And in these organisations, we are putting together 4 or 5, up to 5 organisations to come together and be one part of that. So we get a secure pipeline. And out of that secure pipeline, we want to look at how many houses we're going to need to deliver between us to make this viable. BT Passive will set all the factory up. It will do all the training. It will pick all the people, and the actual factory with a capex of no more than 500k will be able to deliver up to 150, 200 homes a year with a whole new workforce. Now, when you look at what cost the industry so far with the LNG model, the sort of like the Ilke model, top hat, the money is phenomenal. We are never, ever, ever going to be sustainable when we're losing 40 million a year, 100 million a year, 20 million a year. It's never going to happen. So if you can start something up on a very small capex, BT Passive isn't clever. It's got no real, I would say, flash bits about it. It's a piece of timber and a piece of ply and a few hand tools, but it can build any home, from some of the most luxurious houses at 5 million to a very simple 29-metre box, exactly the same way. But what it gives us an opportunity to be very flexible, to start up factories for just one development, to actually get local employment really at the fundamental sharp end of this for a very small amount of capex. And I think it's about be able to do not just new build, not just modular, but do stick built and retrofit is really important, because it gives us a constant flow of work through that factory, whatever you want to build. So it's a really exciting, I think, opportunity for many, many people across the UK. And I certainly hope that you'll be seeing a BT Passive partnership factory near you in the future. One where you'll be able to come and visit and see, but also see the good it's doing locally. We need to change building. It's broken. It's totally crashed. We're paying for something that is never, ever good enough. It's never on time, and it's never to budget. And we don't know what that budget's going to be in the future. So we need to reinvent the whole build process. And I hope that BT Passive is one way of doing that. It's really exciting, and I'm very excited to be able to talk to you today about it. Now, when we talk about ventures and business, they've got to be self-supporting. It's got to be something, a standalone joint venture that actually makes money. Because in business, if we don't make money, we haven't got a business. But if you're a HA and you're working with BT Passive, then your half of profits will go back into your housing stock. And if you're a developer, your half of the stocks will go to you. But it's a thing of working together. We've got the skills, we've got the setup. When I started this factory here, I actually collated every single penny it cost to put this factory in location. All the man hours it took to set it up, the man hours for running and doing every single job we do. So we've got a very close matrix now that allows us to look across all the different jobs we've done and then bring new things into the marketplace. We're about to the next seminars about our schools. Why we build schools the way we do. Why don't we rethink the way we do stuff in schools and in commercial type buildings? But again, that learning will go across the whole of the family of BT Passive. The buying power will go across the whole family of BT Passive. The testing and checking will go across the whole of the BT Passive. And I do know in one day, BT Passive will be guaranteeing the costs in everyone's home as well, because we know they work, because we test the buildings and we know they work. Right, so that was an overview of what we're trying to do in BT Passive Modular. We are able to do it, we are delivering, we have got a very exciting next few years ahead of us, and we want to do it with you. We want to share our technology and the opportunities with you and your companies and your housing association, local authorities, to get more people into the building industry and really make a difference in the way forward. So perhaps I can see we've got a few questions, but I'm going to hand you back to Isabel, and I'll be able to answer your question. But thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I didn't sort of seem like I was preaching, but we've got to speak up. We've got to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Right, so the first question we have is from Noel, who asked, what are your thoughts on lightweight foundations, specifically a screw pile?
Yeah, great. Anything lightweight, we have got a lightweight buildings. We don't need to pump concrete in the ground. So very much screw piles, any type of small type pile or foundation is absolutely perfect. Again, it's got to be designed. All the houses we've ever built are all individually structural engineered designed. So you take care of your ground conditions, etc. But the less intrusion into the ground, less concrete, of course, has got to be a benefit for the environment as well as the cost.
Thank you. Peter's asked, what is the maximum storage you can build for? Specifically, he's asking regarding potential hotel projects or high-rise residential.
Sure. So BT Passive is a timber frame building. So, you know, there are restrictions. At the moment, we're going up to 3-4 stories. We can put a steel frame and go up to 7. Some of the stuff we've been looking at for the power stations, where we've been looking at 7 stories, and in there what we've been looking to do was 1 story, just quickly, part of the accommodation unit was asked me to price for, and they wanted a 2,500 accommodation units, and I said, no, what I'll do, I'll give you 700 houses. And they said, we don't want 700 houses. I said, oh, what we do is I'll design you 700 houses. We'll split them in 4 sections. You'll actually live in those 4 sections for 10 years while I build the power station. You give us them back, and then I'll put them back into houses, and the local community and council have got 700 houses. Why not? Why do we just build for today and not for tomorrow? So 7 stories, yes. Tower blocks, I think, will probably go into more steel, but no reason why not. And it's about, you know, making things work. Timber's a phenomenal thing. Put steel with it, it's just treble as strong.
Thank you. A couple of people have asked about heating and renewables. So maybe you can just cover about heating, ventilation and renewables. Okay,
certainly. So if we've got a building that only needs 15 kilowatt hours per metre square, up against 158 kilowatt hours metre square, of course, the amount of heat is less. Now, heat pumps, yes. We don't need a massive amount of heating, so that's one way of doing it. And again, for every 1 element you put in, you get 3 out in a heat pump. But also the capex cost can be expensive. So again, we've got a test house here that is been out through this winter. I've got a £27 1 kilowatt heater, heating it up to 18 degrees. 1 kilowatt, £18. It heats it. Yes, we've got no people in it. We're not showering, we're not cooking, we're not adding any heat to that. But 17 degrees, 1 kilowatt, 100 square metre home, 2-story. So in the end of it, it really doesn't need a massive amount of heating. We want heat recovery ventilation. Of course, it's going to reuse and reuse and reuse. If on some of the bigger properties that we work on, we use a ground tube. And the ground tube is really interesting because it tempers the temperature of the incoming air by 7 degrees in the winter and 7 degrees in the summer. So once you've installed a tube where you take your inlet air from, run it underground, you're getting 7 degrees difference. And that's huge in the summer. As you imagine, you can see that 7 degrees when it's sweltering outside and in the building. You're getting that difference in temperature. And in the winter, you're already heating the house for nothing, forever. So that is a really good way, but you need some land to put that in or dig around the foundations of the building. For hot water, really important. I mean, there's new technology now like SunAmp, which is a phase change material for hot water, but you can use air source as well. But the SunAmp and those sorts of things are really going to be the way in the future, phase change batteries. So we can put PVs, we can store the hot energy, and then we run water through it, and it heats the water going through the system, basically using the sun's heat, and that can be backed up by nighttime low cost as well. So there's a real balance here. It can be night storage heaters. No one liked them because they didn't work. The reason it didn't work, they're in very cold, drafty homes. You get a really good thermal envelope. it's going to work. So there's lots of new radiators coming out, thermal heaters coming out. So there is a choice, but again, the main thing is to get the envelope as good as possible and the air tightness as tight as possible, and then heat recovery ventilation. The heat you need then is minimal.
Thank you. We have another question from Sasha, which is, how does modular compare to bricks and mortar in relation to soundproofing?
Okay, so BT Passive soundproofing is phenomenal. Passivhaus generally is, but I would say that if you're building a passive house, whether it's modular or stick built, it's far in excess of anything that you've built in normal build processes, just because the air tightness is so good and you've got no gaps anywhere. The insulation is continuous, so again, you've got no gaps anywhere, and that's where the sound differentiates through. Certainly our sound between buildings over 63 degrees, that's going this way, and it's 57 going that way. And we had one recently for one of our retrofits down in Birmingham, where a client was at the bottom of the runway in Birmingham Airport. And I mean, you could not talk when an airplane was taking off, just give up. And then we've done the retrofit, and you could sit inside and have a conversation, listen to TV. And the biggest problem they had it was they couldn't sleep. It was too quiet. Couldn't believe it. So in a building a BT passive home or passive home, you don't hear your neighbour. And when you open the windows, of course, you hear everybody, which you do in the summer when it's lovely window.
Thank you. Just one question here, which I'll answer. Jane, you've asked, how does retrofit work? We did have a retrofit webinar a couple of weeks ago, so I'll get Ken to send you the link to the recording for that one, rather than Ron going into detail now, because there is a whole webinar on that, so we'll come back to that one. Next question is from James. He said, I'm really interested in how you manage to retain air tightness when you're looking at altering the structure later. So he's thinking of new widened doorways for access for disabled resident, for example. Other manufacturers have indicated that achieving air tightness in modular is very difficult. No,
because we design the system from scratch, it's really simple. You've got one membrane that runs under the floor, if you like, or on top of the floor, up the walls and across the ceiling on the roof. So we join it to a window. If we cut a window, we'd cut another window in, we join it back to the membrane to the window. Really simple. Alterations will always happen. How many people live in a home now that's not been altered in the last 50, 100 years? And that will happen to every home. Plan into it. Plan that these buildings will be altered and changed. We've got a ring beam that goes right the way around our modular. Cut a hole anywhere, don't matter. Move things wherever, because that's what happens in buildings. Expect things to change. Expect things that are going to get flooded. Our buildings are designed to completely flood. And so if we use our EPS insulation, it doesn't affect it at all. You can just pour rain through there all day long for the next 20 years, makes no difference to the actual insulation material. So plan that, think these things are going to happen because they will, and what's the problem?
Thank you. Noel's asked, most factory modular systems that I've looked at are focusing mostly on public housing, very much a standard box approach. What can you offer the individual house builder who wants flexibility of design? Yeah, that's a really exciting opportunity, actually. And I've been designing a range of really, I think, modern type luxury homes. And I think we do need that. You know, in the UK, we haven't really got a modular supplier that you can come and design your own home through. And again, that's something BT Passive can deliver. It's not delivering at the moment, but there's no reason why we don't have it. We've got a set size we can transport. That's the issue. And that box is 12 meters long, 4.3 meters wide, because otherwise you've got to have a police escort and it can get expensive. In that, you can design what you want, how you have it. How many you join together? I've done up to 26 meters, I think. Yeah, open plan. So you can have any room you want within that. So it's open to your architect's mind, how you fit those boxes up. So no, I think you're absolutely right. There's a great opportunity. And again, it's something that we're very happy to discuss with people if they want to start that up, and how we work together to have a bespoke factory doing bespoke properties.
it's certainly some market that I think is huge for the UK, and it will allow the self-build to really happen. We're passionate about self-build, and we were very much involved in Graven Hill with the self-build plots around there, and many of our self-builders have built some phenomenal homes after coming on a course with BT Passive and building their own homes. So it's a really simple build process that will deliver in the future.
Thank you. Diane has asked, is the intention to upskill existing trades industry to meet Passivhaus standard?
It's got to be, but unfortunately we haven't got enough of existing skills. 400,000, it was 400,000, it's probably more of that. People go out the building industry every year and nowhere near that comes back in again. So we've got to start rethinking the tradesman. The BT Passive engineer is the future, and that will come in all shapes and sizes, from existing tradesmen to people that have been out of work to people that want a career change. BT Passive needs that opportunity to train everybody in all shapes and sizes. So we just need a whole new workforce, because we've got no chance of delivering 300,000 units a year to zero carbon, and by the time we get there it'll be 500,000 units a year to zero carbon. We've got to retrofit 5 properties a minute to reach our target, and we're doing none. We're tied up in this retrofit market where we'll be doing probably 200 this year, but 200, it's not even starting on it. So it's a big market, it's a huge opportunity for employment, and we've got to start driving those opportunities.
Thank you. James has asked, can the buildings be clad in, so for example, in sensitive environments where the planners will be looking for traditional materials, and how such materials are fixed? Yes,
so we basically got a carrier board on the outside of a building, so you can put stone, bricks, timber, any material. It is a ventilated void, so whatever we put onto a building must ventilate, so any moisture that gets through that facade will need to ventilate. But realistically, any material can be put onto a BT Passive modular home or any BT Passive home.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions about the factory partnership, whether you know this off the hand or into get back to them, but what is the break-even point for setting up a flying factory? Okay, so we're looking at starting off at 50 homes a year, and then rising up to about, if you're going to break even, you really need to be just under the 70 type homes. And then we go up to 150 where the profits start to come in. But it's all around what you want. It's not about, it's about working together to find out how many homes that works for and how you join together. Because if there's capacity, there's more homes wanted than we could ever produce. So, as I say, I'm not thinking that we could build 2,000 homes from one location. The logistics of that are just amazing. And I wish the boys doing that all the best. But I'm talking about small factories. Some of them will be set up doing 20 or 30 or 50, if that works. Some will be doing 100, 200, 300. But it's really around the clients and what their pipeline is and how many they need. I think actually, Peter, I may have read out your question because you're actually asking about the flying factory, which means the break-even point is even lower. I think it's about 10 homes.
Yes. Sorry, the flying factory is different. Yeah. Flying factories is a lot smaller. There's a training course, and we come and help you. You come along, do the training course, or your company will. We do the training here for a week. We then come and set your factory up with you and help you do that. And then we help you build the first property. And then we keep managing that with tests and so forth going forward.
Yeah, so Ken can discuss more detail on that if you'd like it. Clive's asked, what are the principal insulation materials you use in your modular construction? Okay, so principally we've got EPS bead, and we pump that around the building. That's made from 2% recycled oil and 98% steam. Buildings are 94.2% insulation, so incredibly insulated void. The material is fire retardant. It's fantastic within that environment. It can be completely drenched, and then it can be just left and it will all dry out naturally. And it can be cut out and then it's all with a glue and put back in again. So it's totally reusable in its lifetime. We also can use rock wall type materials, glass walls that we're going to be using for some of our retrofit. We're doing
We're part of the design team for the Grenville Tower estate. Now you can appreciate how fire is a big issue around there. So we'll be using rock wool to be pumped in around those buildings. So there is many materials. Also for the MOD in Afghanistan, we were designing stuff where we could use sand. And we could pump sand into the building. They could use that building for a time when they're there, take the building down, take the sand out, move on, and then refill it with sand again. So many type materials.
Paul's asked, all the capital cost risks for the factory partnerships rest with the HAs or councils. What investment does BT Passive input? Okay, so people say that and they say, well, okay, so we're bringing all design, we're bringing all the technology, we're bringing all the setup and how we get these people to site and understand. We're doing all the training, and then everything else is borne by that department. So as I say, you know, it's not just we've invested millions and 10 years in this to get to where we are. And if you can start a modular factory up from nothing on 500,000, then you've done very well. This is about all the tools, all the infrastructure that's needed, not the building will be rented, but that's part of in the overall cost of that factory. So we're bringing all the technology, all the setup, and we will come along and set that factory up, and then that will be self-supporting with its management team and its delivery team. Thank you. Paul's also asked actually about whether, so why should HA's council invest in a BT Passive factory when competitors already established in Wales can offer the same type of product? Okay, so that depends on, there's horses for courses. If someone is already established in the area and they're happy getting what they want in Wales, absolutely 100%. We're not finding that. We're finding that local authorities and HAs want to be part of something, want to locally delivering on what they are. And if you can buy something from a local factory and you're happy with what you're getting, of course, stay what you're doing. You know, we're not the only modular factory. We'll never be the only one. You know, there will be other passive house modulars coming along, but we've been doing this now for over 11 years, delivering quality products, and I think building needs to change. So we don't just need one delivery. We don't need two. We need thousands of people being able to deliver modular homes. So by all means, you know, there's no reason why people don't stick with what they're doing if they're getting what they want. Rupert's asked, how do you incorporate sufficient thermal mass or other systems to reduce summer overheating other than shading or suitable window size orientation? Okay, as you know, shading is the key. Lightweight construction is really good because, of course, it changes, it varies very quickly. So opening the window will make a massive difference. Where opening the window with a lot of concrete or thermal mass doesn't make a lot of difference because it's got that store to get rid of. But in some properties where we have got an issue, we use natural clay, phase change materials, which absorb heat and then release. So we've used phase change, which can hold up to 57 degrees and then release it at 19 degrees. It's very rare a BT Passive building is overheated. We don't get a lot of that through PHPP. We design that out. Passivhaus is really good looking at overheating and making sure that doesn't happen. Debbie said, by just moving or reconfiguring modules, could we be looking at a future without messy demolitions and rebuild, which is very environmentally wasteful and unpopular in experience? Absolutely. I mean, BT Passive is designed to be totally reusable. The first house we built it in a factory environment. We got all our certifications and all the patents and things. And then we took it apart and we reused everything to make a new building out of it. Every screw nail was reused, if you like, and it was. All the insulation was taken out and put back in again. Totally reusable homes. And that's what sustainability is about. Totally using something again for another life, like those I was talking about Sizewell, having another life for every single building at its end of its life. So yes, I mean, every building that we can build out of that factory can be dismantled, taken up again and shifted. Just don't tell the mortgage people. Thank you. One question which Liam's raised is about embodied carbon. You may not know this to hand, but do you have any figures on how much carbon is saved in the construction process for modular over conventional site construction? I know that our BT Passive was looking at 74. Was it 74? That's 170. Okay, yeah, that was it then. So this is our normal building with 170 tons of carbon in a standard building, I think 74 in a BT Passive. So quite a bit difference in that. Because we're using timber, of course, it's very sustainable. The insulation is very light. It's the worst thing in there because it's got that 2%
petrochemical in it. But on the whole, we do a life cycle analysis, and BT Passive comes up really strong in the way that it's put together. Of course, we also don't have much waste. We use down to 50 mil of timber within our processes, and because it's all pre-managed, then every waste is cut down as well. And I think the building industry has got this huge amount of waste for every building we do. How many times you see skips and skips and skips of waste, where if you're pre-modeling something, you know exactly how many meters of plasterboard goes in it. You can work out all the cuts, best way to actually put a plasterboard onto a wall or a cladding timber. So it does make that whole waste part really start to reduce.
Thank you. So we always come to the top of the hour, but just the last question is from Sean, are there any show homes that can be visited, or where can we see the modular units? Yeah,
I mean, there's not much in the factory now, but we can show you around modular. Ken, if you'd like to speak to Ken after, or Ken would show you some of our modular homes. You can drive around Graven Hill if you like, if you want out for a Sunday drive, which is in Oxford. And as you drive into that building, into that estate, you will see the 4-story or 3-story townhouses on the left-hand side. They were all done in volumetric. The ones on the right were all done on-site build, but all giving you the same amount of quality and buildability, all the same.
Yeah, and we also have sites in Wales that Ken's very happy to take you down to. So do get in touch with Ken should you like to organise a visit, either to see the factory in manufacture or to see one of our sites that's under construction at the moment. We're very happy to take you to those. I think unfortunately we come to the top of the hour, or just over now, so sorry about that. If there's any questions that we haven't managed to get to, Ken will come back to you directly. There is also, we're going to be sharing a recording of the webinar, so should any of your colleagues not have a chance to join, you'd like to forward it on, please do so. And if you have any questions or would like further information, then please reach out to Ken, who will contact you all following this webinar. Thank you ever so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. Good to speak to you. Bye-bye.